As I stood in front of the cinema a few years ago, I couldn't think of anything other than my friend's comments. The new Puss in Boots movie is a true masterpiece. I have never seen a better antagonist than the Death Wolf. Damn exciting! A film not only for children, but also for adults. Armed with enough snacks and entering the cinema hall, I looked at the cinema screen and watched this 102-minute long movie. I left the cinema with a big smile on my face. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is without a doubt one of my top 5 animated films I have ever seen. Well, this thesis might sound daring for someone who only expects a cheap sequel after the rather mediocre first part. That's pretty much how I felt. But animation, characters and themes make this film something very special. Today I would like to examine how the theme of fear runs through the film, how this fear affects our main protagonist psychologically, and how one can effectively overcome his fear. At the beginning of the work, Puss is a glorious and heroic figure. He is celebrated and beloved by everyone who crosses his path. At the same time, this freedom goes hand in hand with a certain irresponsibility, so the fearless hero simply stumbles through the world at random. Overconfidence is definitely recognizable. But after fighting an opponent who seems so easy to defeat, another death catches up with him. Now the explanation follows. Death finally catches up with everyone. First from the village doctor, then from the antagonist Death himself. A wonderful theme for viewers, transience, not only for children but also for adults. But I think there's another fear that comes across quite well in the film, and that's the fear of growing old. Fear of being unable to do things when Puss is placed in a completely peaceful environment. This is further proof that even seniors can take something away from this masterpiece. The plot of the film slowly builds up as the wishing star is discussed, which Puss wants to use to regain his lost lives. Not a particularly complex plot, but a strong and concise one, so as not to distract the viewer from the main theme of fear, in which the catalyst of fear also appears, Perito the dog. Together with their old companion, Kitty Softpaws, they are now on their way to the wishing star. The theme of fear, and in particular, the fearlessness of Puss in Boots, is discussed again and again between the three protagonists. However, when reality catches up with him, and death is on his heels, Puss actually experiences true fear here, which goes completely against his own code of values. Because only a fearless hero is also a brave one. Only a fearless hero can achieve the greatest feats and live in everlasting happiness. Perito wants to convey to him that this is not true, when Puss, leaning against a tree, his heart racing with fear, is close to a mental collapse. I was definitely surprised that therapy dogs are dealt with so well and sensitively in this work, since one should deal with themes of psychological instability rather sensitively, and not every film shows that sensitivity. A turning point in Puss's life has been reached. He realizes that one should not flee from fear, but deal with it. With his new attitude, he can finally address his and Kitty's failed marriage, which is a good example of overcoming fear. As I said, the film is suitable for all ages, because each age group experiences its own fears. Well, that's all well and good in theory, but now death has yet to be conquered on a physical level. This occurs during the film's climax, when Puss now faces death in a one-on-one duel. Death is now pushed back, and Puss understands that confronting death is necessary in order to appreciate life. Because by running away and defiance, the fear of death will never go away.
Live your life, Puss in Boots. Live it well. You know we will meet again, right?
Sí, hasta la muerte.
You know, what I find so exciting about this film is that this one fear of death is applicable to pretty much any fear. And that's exactly what viewers can learn here, after leaving the theater and reflecting on their lives. Because every fear, once it is dealt with and worked through, is transient. Psychological themes in a children's film, isn't that a bit overinterpreted? Well, with fear mounting in our minds in modern times, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish conveys a message that seems more relevant than ever in this day and age.